How's it going, guys? This is Jamie. So I wanted to give Roman a break and engage in some real talk for a bit, alright? It's no secret that there was a very vocal backlash against RWBY Volume 5, particularly on YouTube. And I have one question. Why? As someone who is a bit disappointed with Volume 4, I thoroughly enjoyed Volume 5. As a matter of fact, I personally view it as perhaps the objectively best volume yet. However, I'm ostensibly in the minority. As scrolling down YouTube, you'll see almost nothing about Volume 5 except rants and reasons why it's supposedly terrible. So, I decided to break up the monotony and defend my position. In this video, I will cover why RWBY Volume 5 is the best so far, while also addressing some of the criticism. Before we get into a discussion of why something is good or bad, we have to establish criteria. What would be the criteria for a quality volume of RWBY? There seems to be a general consensus that the top 3 best things about RWBY are its animation, its characters, and its plot. So that will be our criteria. Without further ado, let's get started. As previously stated, RWBY has always been known for its spectacular animation. Monty was unarguably a genius, but there has been some allegations of a dip in quality since his death. However, I've seen very few criticisms actually directed towards the overall animation in Volume 5. Mostly, people have disparaged the choreography and have offered a few other minor nitpicks in regard to the animation. Concerning the nitpicks, they're just that, nitpicks. With all due respect to critics, I've seen people seriously attack Volume 5 for how far the characters' legs are spread when they run. Don't look into that too deep. The choreography, on the other hand, I don't really understand the problem. Some have said the animation is a lot less rapid and there's more pauses. I'd, however, argue that fights are only slowed down when it's necessary. Blake and Sun vs. Ilya is universally loved, and even critics have called it the one bright spot. This is because it's fast-paced. The final battle at Haven, on the other hand, is lambasted for too many interruptions, too much dialogue, and a lack of energy. People are missing that this is necessary and intentional. Look at the airport battle from Captain America Civil War, considered one of the greatest film scenes of 2016. There are also a lot of interruptions, and a great deal of talking. And don't tell me that's not the case, because Falcon even turns to Spider-Man on one occasion and scolds him for reacting during a fight. The similarity between the airport battle and the Battle of Haven are the scale. So much is going on, and there's so many combatants. But the airport battle is the only one that gets a pass for some reason. Another comparison can be drawn between the lightsaber duels in the original Star Wars trilogy compared to the prequels. Sure, the prequel fights are more acrobatic and complex, but the fights in the original trilogy are based on emotion. Vader vs. Obi-Wan is epic not because of the action, but because of the emotion. Similarly, there's a great deal of emotion during the Battle of Haven. 2 siblings forced to fight each other, a sympathetic villain seeking revenge for the death of his beloved sister, a man blinded by the rage of facing down the murderer of the love of his life. Rooster Teeth intentionally focuses on the dialogue rather than the action, and I believe the Battle of Haven is one of the best battles in RWBY in its own special way. Even still, we get action-packed fluid fights. The previously mentioned Blake and Sun vs. Ilya, Yang vs. Raven Stugs, Raven vs. Cinder, Raven vs. Cinder. A battle that took even the most hardened cynic's breath away. Bottom line, Volume 5 gives us a healthy balance of passion-driven conflict and plain old kickassery. A balance we had not seen up to that point. Speaking of fights, you can't have one without characters, right? Yeah, I know. Terrible transition, but bear with me. The characters in Volume 5 shine like they never have before. Our bright, cheerful Yang is finally back to her old self for the most part, but is still struggling with angst and bitterness. Weiss's outer exterior of a snobby rich girl has finally melted in the face of her true self, an affectionate empath. After After falling back into her old ways of isolating herself, Blake is finally allowing herself to become close with those around her and is truly back and reunited with her friends, her sisters, for good. RWBY. Oh my dear Lord, RWBY. I know some RWBY haters say she's a bad protagonist or the focus shouldn't be on her or whatever, but that's a topic for another video. RWBY is one of the most inspirational characters on the show. Despite everything she's lost, despite all of her heartbreak, she keeps moving forward. And we're finally given a scene where she explains her eternal optimism in the face of nihilism. Every protagonist in RWBY is just as lovable as ever. Sure, they're not perfect, they're human, but at heart, each and every one of them is a good person, and Volume 5 showed them overcoming many of their flaws. Some have said too many characters get swept aside unceremoniously. My response is, have you been watching RWBY for the past 5 years? That happens. It's a flaw. I'll admit. But if anything, Volume 5 commits this ongoing sin in a much more minor fashion than its predecessor. Think about all the contestants in the Vital Festival. How much development did they get? I know people will cite Sienna Khan, Lionheart, and Vernal, but here's the thing. Those characters serve their purpose. I don't honestly think any of them were overhyped. Just because they have cool designs doesn't mean they're supposed to be important. This is not a repeat of Supreme Leader Snoke. As a writer, I was not disappointed with the payoff for any character to the same degree I was with Snoke. Khan had to die for Adam to take control of the White Fang. Lionheart was a selfish coward who got what he deserved. Vernal was the only one who received anything resembling hype, but this was done intentionally. And unlike Snoke, she was never shown as being particularly enigmatic or powerful. The important characters for the most part get the focus they need, and I can't tell you how many times I almost cried during this volume. Speaking of characters, the overall writing in Volume 5 has gotten the brunt of online vitriol. To a certain degree, I will admit that there are problems, but also point out that the writing really is not that bad. It's been said that the volume suffers from too much cramming, the pacing, and a forced happy ending. If we're going to look at complicated plots, let's talk about the beloved Volume 3. How much was going on in that volume? The villain scheming, Team RWBY, Pyrrha and her misgivings about being the next Maiden, the Vital Festival. RWBY has always had a lot of stuff going on, and this had to be the case in Volume 5, considering everything that had been set up in Volume 4. The volume had a lot on its plate, and I think it was handled just fine. As for the pacing, any writer will tell you that the first and third act of a story is where things are interesting, and in Volume 5 they are. Yes, things slow down in the second act, but it serves a purpose. The middle episodes are reserved for development and they do their job. Many great movies chill in the middle. Look at Empire Strikes Back, considered to be among the greatest movies of all time, where so much time is spent with Luke training on Dagobah. The forced happy ending, quote-unquote, was completely necessary. After seeing our heroes get beaten in Volume 3 and mope around in Volume 4, the happy ending was fan service. Fan service in a good way. Just like in the old days of Volume 1 and 2, we have something to feel good about. The heroes emerge unscathed and the tide of the ongoing war is possibly turned. If you don't think the protagonist dealt with as many consequences this volume, go watch 3 and 4. I, for one, was getting so tired, and I was so heartbroken from seeing my favorite characters so helpless and so broken, and I was so thankful to finally see them win just one time. Side note, the tone in Volume 5 is perfect, and one of my favorite things about the whole volume. It eloquently combines that sweet anime-style happiness and humor from the first 2 volumes with the darkness and grit of the last 2. I loved Volume 5. Opinions are opinions, and I completely respect those who disagree. But I hope I've introduced a new perspective with my defense and praise of the animation, the characters, and the plot of Volume 5. In the end, I'm always open to respectfully debate with those who have differing opinions, and I look forward to analyzing my beloved show while waiting for the next amazing installment. As always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button. If you like what you see, please subscribe and ring that bell icon so you're alerted every time I release a new video. While RWBY is a very large focus on my channel, I also look at other fandoms such as Star Wars, Marvel, and Nintendo, so please do check out my other videos if you're interested. Also, if you'd like to be a pal and help out the channel, feel free to contribute to my Patreon account. Any amount helps and guarantees that I can continue making these kinds of videos. Link in the description. Big shout out to my buddy Chris. Congratulations on graduating, and thanks for checking out the channel, bro. Chris also has a channel where he covers music like Imagine Dragons and Alicia Keys. The guy has a lot of talent, and I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below. Until next time, this is Jamie, saying... Hasta luego.